All right. All right. Well, good evening, potentially good afternoon, depending on where you may be checking in from in the world. Thank you for joining us today to learn about the University of Medicine and Health Sciences, or UMHS. My name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions at UMHS, and my colleagues and I appreciate the opportunity to share information with you this evening about the university. I'd like to note that if you've not yet applied for admission to UMHS, and I see a couple of familiar names in our list of participants, so I know a few of you have. Good to see you. But if you've not yet applied, applications are still being accepted and processed for September of 2025. So if your plan had been to start med school this fall and you've not yet been given an opportunity to do so, talk to us. We may still be able to give you that opportunity in just under 4 months from now. Again, we're accepting applications for this September and also for the entry terms in 2026 as well. So thanks for joining us. It's good to see everybody. We've got a lot of information to share with you. I'd like to introduce a few of the panelists who are with us this evening. Well, first of all, along with me, as always, is my colleague, Director of Enrollment Management, Sham Daria, who's pushing the buttons and pulling the levers behind the scenes and making us all look good. So thanks, Sham. And Sham and I will be handling the Q&A. We'll be typing answers to your individual questions as you put them in the Q&A box. And we'll be cherry picking a few to pitch out to our panelists as well. And our panelists include, first of all, Dr. Craig Eyre. Dr. Eyre is Assistant Dean of Student Affairs at UMHS. He's also Associate Professor of Molecular Science and Chair of the Research Program at UMHS. Good evening, Dr. Eyre. Good to see you as always.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Thanks, Sean. I'm glad you could join us wherever you are for afternoon, evening, morning. I'm happy to talk to you about UMHS, what life is like on the island, some opportunities for research for you. So, as Sean said, I'm a professor on the island in our molecular sciences department. So, by training, I'm an immunologist who accidentally found themselves into genetics at one point in their career. So I've been involved in molecular diagnostic work, clinical trial work, and at UMHS, I teach in our immunology, our genetics, and our first couple of semesters in molecular sciences. So a little bit about me. I did my degrees at Memorial University of Newfoundland. So I'm a Canadian. And when I'm not on the island, I participate with the school in sort of our outreach in different avenues for students and professors for making those kinds of collaborations with the school. So I'm glad you could join us today, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks so much, Craig. Good to see you. Also joining us this evening from up in Portland, Maine, Dr. Matthew Michaud. Dr. Michaud is the Director of Maine Operations for us up in Portland. He's also Associate Director of Academic Support, Learning Development. He's a learning specialist by trade. Good evening, Dr. Michaud.
Well, I'm happy to spend some time this evening with you and glad to answer any questions um, that you may think of. We in Maine we have a what we call the fifth semester, but we fly students to Maine. They get to experience a new culture, but they get to do a nice review of their basic science and a head start on their introduction to clinical medicine before they head out to their clinical shifts. And I love this time of year because we just started with a new class and they wonder what's happening. And I think the main semester is all about building confidence, and students are excelling already. I did a um, question-based review where we use a software package that presents questions like USMLE questions. And I had a group of 10 students that just did a phenomenal job. And that makes me really enjoy the time that I get to spend with them. And again, I'm looking forward to spending some time with you tonight.
All right, Dr. Michaud, good to see you as always. Now, we couldn't do these events certainly without real live UMHS students and alumni, and we're fortunate to have two alums with us this evening. First of all, I'd like to introduce Dr. Kirthi Suganathavan. Dr. Kirthi is just Kirthi to us. PGY2 in surgery at Detroit Medical Center in Michigan, originally from Guelph up in Canada. She's also been an adjunct anatomy and clinical lab instructor as well. Hi, Kirthi. Looks like you just got off of shift.
Yes, I did. And I'm Dr. Kurthi to all my patients too. I don't even try with my last name, so that's perfect. Hey everyone, my name's Kurthi. I'm a second year general surgery resident at DMC Sinai Grace here in Detroit, Michigan. I'm actually Canadian. I grew up in Canada. I did my undergrad at the University of Guelph in human kinetics. I didn't really know what I wanted to do after that. I took a few years and I worked, and then I decided, okay, let's try this medical school route. And I did my research, I found UMHS, and I'm so grateful that I found UMHS because it led me to where I am right now in my dream residency. And it just feels like yesterday I was in your spot trying to figure out what medical school I wanted to go to and doing all the research and sitting in these webinars. But that's what we're here for. I know you probably have tons of questions and we want you to get all the answers that you need and all the information that you need to make an informed decision for yourselves. And so don't hesitate, ask any questions, and I'm glad you're here today and hope we can answer all your questions.
Kirsty, real quick, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping in. Sorry, Sean. I have a meeting with Guelph next week. They want to affiliate with UMHS, and it would be great to
Ooh.
have you on that call when we meet with the dean and provost, if you're
Oh,
available.
I'd love to, for sure.
So I'll touch base with you. Send me your contact information, and I'll touch base later this week.
We'll do.
Sorry, Sean.
Hey, this is the president's webinar. That is news hot off the press for you, Kurthi. Not too far from Kurthi is Dr. Zach Vanderveer. Dr. Vanderveer is finishing up his second year in interventional radiology at Corewell Health in Grand Rapids. Originally from Elk Rapids in Michigan, also holder of an American Certified Chemistry degree. How you doing, Zach? Good to see you.
Hey guys, I'm doing well. UMHS is the best decision I ever made. Met Kurthi on the island. We're still friends. We still talk all the time. We've been trying to get together for probably 2 years now, and just with residency schedules, it's been kind of difficult. But UMHS is an incredible school. Blessed that they took a chance on me, and couldn't be more blessed to be in the spot I am. And we're excited to talk to you today and answer all your questions. This is a pretty informative session, and like Kurthi said, I remember being in your shoes, and this was one of the webinars that sort of really turned the tides and made me really consider UMHS.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Zach. Obviously, you both have a lot of demands on your time and the positions that you're in, so we appreciate you sharing some of that precious time with us. But as I mentioned, this is the President's webinar, and as you've already seen, the President is on with us, and he'll be leading us through the presentation this evening. So without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce President of UMHS, President Warren Ross. Good to see you, Warren.
Hey, good to be here. And I'm very excited. There's nothing more that I like to do than talk about UMHS. And what I generally like to do is talk a little bit about my history, because it really has helped me in terms of developing UMHS. So taking way back to when I first got into medical education, my dad and I were the founders of Ross University. And that was back in 1978, when there weren't any alternatives to off in terms of if you didn't get into a U.S. school other than Mexico, Italy, and the Philippines. And he created one of the first offshore medical schools on the island of Dominica. And at that time, we really didn't have a lot of financing. It started out small, but we built it into one of the larger Caribbean medical schools with multiple affiliations, with probably over 40 teaching hospitals in the United States. We received Title IV funding for student loans. We have thousands of graduates who are practicing and licensed throughout the United States, and we built one of the more state-of-the-art institutions. We developed that over a period of probably 20, 30 years, and so we gained a lot of insight, experience, knowledge, understood how to develop an institution. But the priority always was our students. We were really focused on them. We listened to them. They helped guide us in establishing the programs. And we made sure that we received all the accreditations and approvals necessary to show that we're a quality institution. But when my dad turned 80, he decided that it was time to retire. And so he sold both the medical school and veterinary school. But he kept an eye on what was going on in the Caribbean. and realized that a lot of these schools were getting way too large, bringing in 300, 400, 500 students a semester, 2 and 3 times a year. And it's really hard to provide the same quality, personalized education that we offered in the past under those circumstances. And many of these institutions were being bought up by Wall Street type individuals. So their focus was more on profit rather than quality of education. So my dad turned to me and said, you know what, we need to provide students with an alternative to these larger institutions. But this time we had the knowledge, we had the experience, we had the know-how to develop an institution, but with a different twist. We are not building towards we were not building towards a Caribbean model. We were building towards a U.S. model, and in every way possible, starting out with the facilities that we built. Really, some of those, I would say, one of the most state-of-the-art institutions in the Caribbean, from the fiber optic backbone to the classrooms that are equipped with the most latest audiovisual technology to enhance the education, to a learning resource center, to a beautiful, a state-of-the-art virtual hospital. This is my third anatomy lab, which is really absolutely amazing. We're going to show you a little more pictures about that. But in addition to that, the concept was small, boutique, individual attention. That was key, and provide the resources and the faculty as well as the learning specialists to support your education. Because the goal is, performance, that people who are accepted are going to make it through the program. And we know that that from the initial data of our starting to now, approximately 85% of our students actually make it to graduation. They succeed, which is a really high number. Our attrition rate is probably one of the lowest in the Caribbean. And a lot of that really relates to the manpower that we currently have in St. Kitts, maintaining, a 7-to-1 student faculty ratio with and what I like most about the way the program is designed is that you sit for quizzes and blocks throughout the semester, block examinations. And as any student who's at risk after any block examination, they're required to meet with their faculty member, go over the examinations, and develop an action plan for improvement, which can include not only that action plan, but referrals to learning specialists. And we have a team of very a team of learning specialists who work on a lot of different things, including time management, communication skills, test taking skills. So there's supplement what you're getting out of from the faculty who are mentoring and tutoring you. So it's that small school environment, personalized education, dedicated faculty, and the resources that you need to succeed. And that's what I'm most happy about, is that we have a program in place to ensure your success with a traditional basic science program. What I like about certain aspects of the program is, for example, in the anatomy lab, and if you can show a picture of the anatomy lab, and what we see in the Caribbean right now is that many of the schools have moved away from a traditional anatomy lab, but we feel it's really important aspect of your education. And so we support the use of cadavers, and many of the other schools, because they're so large, can no longer provide cadavers. So you can't do a traditional dissection. You're using plasticized models, you're using computer simulation, but you're not actually getting into the dissection. In ours, we maintain a 6-to-1 cadaver ratio. This is my third anatomy lab I built. We have two 50-ton air conditioning units that replace the air in there 24/7. So there's literally little to no smell in that facility. The other part that I really like is our virtual hospital with a multitude of simulators that you can utilize, and gives you a lot of hands-on experience in your 5th semester in Introduction to Clinical Medicine 1. And throughout the basic sciences, it's mandated that in our curriculum, all curriculum has now a clinical component to it, because we know USMLE Step 1 is clinical in nature. So all through the basic sciences, especially in the first semester where you have physical diagnosis, but also in all the other classes, everything has clinical vignettes in terms of how they're teaching the courses. And we're utilizing USMLE style questions both in the quizzes that you get on a weekly basis, as well as in all the block examinations. So we're really so in terms of those two facilities, I think they're really outstanding. I think Kirthi, you came back for a while and you were involved in anatomy and ICM. Maybe you could tell a little bit about your experiences down in St. Kitts. Maybe,
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. There's one thing being a student and appreciating the anatomy lab, but coming back and teaching, it was really cool to watch how students incorporated anatomy with all their other classes. So one thing that I really like about how UMHS sets up each semester is that it's very everything kind of meshes well together. So in your first semester, regardless if you take EBS or the med program, they'll discuss that later. In your first semester, you have anatomy, you have cell bio, you have like a few other classes, histology, even physical diagnosis. All these classes, they kind of talk about a system at a time. So they'll start with the heart, they'll start with the lungs, and they'll talk about the same unit in all the different subjects. So it's really nice because in anatomy, you can kind of pull everything that you're learning in all your other subjects and kind of visualize it and get that hands-on experience. So it's very unique, and you can coming back and seeing students and like make those connections. It was really valuable. And being a general surgery resident, that time in the anatomy lab, I'll never take for granted. It was amazing to be able to truly visualize that anatomy, because when in your life will you ever see it again? And also that time in the anatomy lab that you're working with your co-students, it just builds camaraderie. It's a great time, and just they do such a good job. The teachers in the anatomy lab are fantastic. The teachers overall are fantastic. They really want you to understand. They take the time, they teach. For example, before exams in the anatomy lab, they'll have the lab open later for that week, and all the teachers will be there and will answer any questions, because the goal is not to fail you. The goal is to make sure you understand. So when you move on to the next semester, you have all the information to then make the next connections that you need to in the next set of subjects. So it's just very well thought out, and everything meshes really well, and it's a great way to tie everything together.
Thank you, Kirthi. So just get my video back on. Sorry, sometimes this thing turns yellow. And one of the things that is important to me is not only that you have faculty that are dedicated to you and to mentoring and tutoring you, we have learning specialists. So Matt, maybe you could explain what is the goal and what is the vision of a learning specialist? I know you can talk a little bit about Maine, but you also talk a little bit about what we're trying to achieve in St. Kitts with regards to communication skills, writing skills, test taking skills, time management. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that. And Matt was formerly was it the University of Arizona or Arizona State, where he gained significant amount of experience at a U.S. medical school.
Yeah, sure. I'm glad to. I think that a learning specialist helps people with transition. A lot of folks think that in a medical school, a medical education learning specialist um, certainly does the work of helping people. How do I attack a test? Even though I've been taking tests for 14 years or 12 years or 16 years. But I think what a learning specialist does is they help somebody at a time in transition. They explain things in the soft skills of time management. There's only 24 hours in a day, but they explain it differently to a first semester medical school student, differently to someone that is a PG Y1 year, because how they're looking at that time that they do is different. Certainly how, as I have somebody learning and understanding time management is very different in their second year than how they learn it when they're independent on their own, studying for step one and doing a number of questions that they do in a day. We help people in a time of transition to get them to move to the next part of their medical education. And there are different stages in medical education that happen regularly for students. And as they really conquer those skills that they can use to move to the next level, the joy that I get with students is that I see them, they completely forget the struggle that they had when they were first learning something new. They move to a new area and a new skill set, and they eat it up. They like learning. I have students who tell me that their best friend is at home, but he's staying on the couch watching uh watching the baseball game. Well, my students are getting together with a group of friends and learning how to study from each other and expand what they know with medical knowledge. And so when we help people with transition, we help them expand their soft skills along with all of the great medical knowledge that they're learning. And I see people's language change. I see people's understanding and how they describe what they do change very much. And it's all about the growth. Uh, we work with certainly the basic skills that we may not have put in place yet, but we also work with understanding a mindset of how we do things that we never thought we were able to do. And I use the pronoun we with it because I learn from the students right along as I'm teaching with them. I learn something new and more about myself every time that I see them making advances in what they're understanding and putting into practice. The maybe the last thing that I would say is that as a learning specialist, we've learned how to meet students no matter where they're coming in, uh, uh, the experience that they have with education, and take them to a new place that transitions them so that they succeed more and more in medical school. I have some students struggle the first semester, and the light bulb comes on, and they don't forget what they learned from that struggle, but they learn and improve every single semester. And one of the things that I like about UMHS is that um, we really don't have uh, a, a punitive, what I would call, progression that we work with. We work with students developing the skills and that they're doing their work so that they continue to progress on toward the next stage of their medical education.
Thanks, Matt. So in the basic sciences, you have a traditional basic science program that you can either complete in 4 or 5 semesters. And once again, with faculty that are really dedicated to your success. And we do that in a couple of different ways. One is that we've now integrated into the curriculum USMLE style quizzes on a weekly basis or every 2 weeks. And what's nice about that is you can then see how you're performing, and you know that all the faculty have office hours. And I always encourage people from the very beginning to start to meet with their faculty, meet with their advisors, so that that if they encounter any academic issues, they can address them early on, especially before they sit for their first block examination. The other thing that I really like about our curriculum is that we've now integrated into all the classes a clicker system. And the way the clicker system works is that the faculty member will ask a variety of questions during the course of the lecture, and those will come across your computers, and you'll be required to respond to those questions. And then it automatically grades the class. And if a significant percentage gets the right answer, they move on. If they didn't get the right answer, the faculty member stays on the question and the material. So it's a way of helping the faculty member understand if you understand the information, and it ultimately helps you perform at a higher level. So the clicker system is really good. maybe Craig, you could talk a little bit about the faculty, their dedication to the students, that small school environment. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that from your perspective, and then maybe segue a little bit into student government, since you oversee oversee the student government. You can give a little bit of an explanation of what that body does and the importance of that, because as I said before, me as a president, I need to listen to the students. What are their concerns? What are their recommendations? What are they what can we do to improve the academic program? And the SGA are the spokespeople for the student body. So it's a really important organization. So Craig, I'll leave it to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to talk about it. So, as President Ross, as Dr. Michaud, as Kurthy, as Zach have all been talking about in different avenues, UMHS has put a significant amount of resources in making sure that our faculty, our school, and our curriculum are as student-centered as it's possible to be. So, the first thing that I'm going to suggest to you is what you know about your undergraduate education or even your graduate education, you need to put that to one side. As you transition into a medical school, we're moving outside of this course where knowledge is demonstrated just by writing a test, passing, moving on. We're done with that. So medicine is much more of a mentorship. You are looking for a career. Okay, it's almost like an apprenticeship. So medicine is designed to get you ready for a very specific career. When you graduate, it's not ambiguous what you're going to be. So your training has to get you ready to practice and to step into a specific role. So we're going to start with the faculty to talk about how that happens. So all the faculty at UMHS, myself included, we maintain a 7-to-1 and 8-to-1 faculty to student ratio. So that's comparable, that's enviable to the schools that are in the United States or Canada. So stop and think about, first off, how much time did you actually spend interacting with your faculty members? How available were they for your office hours? How many names did you know? How many courses did you attend where you didn't even know the professor's name? So right off the bat, that doesn't happen. Faculty at UMHS spend on average 3 times the amount of time teaching than you would find in a comparable US or comparable Canadian school. So that means you get an enormous amount of face time with each and every faculty member. You learn them and they learn you. So that means that we get to know where you're excelling, where the struggles are in our class, the things where we can speed up, where we need to slow down, or where we need to alter. We spend a lot of time learning from each other, and that means we can customize the experience semester by semester that the students are getting. This is now, I'm coming into my 15th semester teaching at UMHS. I have taught the same class every time, but I have never taught the same class twice because every semester we make adjustments on how this class is going to make sure that we're getting you exactly where you need to be. That can only happen when you have this FaceTime and this relationship with your faculty members. So who are your faculty members? On the island, every faculty member has got a terminal degree. So that means they have their PhD or their MD or both. If they are an MD, then they've been brought onto the island so that they can teach more of the clinical focusing parts of our curriculum. If they're a PhD, they're on the island because they're a specialist in a particular area. So you get the best of both worlds everywhere. We team teach all of our courses, so that means at any moment you are getting the strongest faculty member for each section of each course that you're getting. So that's very, very high quality educational experiences compared to other places where you may be taught by teaching assistants who are somewhere in their own program just ahead of you. And those are your course professors. There are other programs, for example, where the professor has virtually no interaction with the students whatsoever. There are other schools, for example, where the professor doesn't interact with the the students. The professor teaches the class, and then any FaceTime that you have is with somebody else who was not part of your classroom professor. So that doesn't happen with us. The experience is very personalized, very dedicated to you, and very responsive to you. Our faculty dedicate approximately all of their teaching time or all of their time to teaching, mentoring, or school improvement. So, to give you a breakdown about what a day looks like for us, as a great example, I'll use me. When I go into my classroom, I teach this semester at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I usually get to the campus around 8 o'clock, and I usually see students in kind of these informal drop-ins between 8 and 10. That's just people who are walking around, and our doors are open. We maintain an absolute open door policy from the dean down through every faculty member that we have. So students drop in all the time. When was the last time that you just walked in without an appointment to the dean's office? After that, go into my class. Teaching time, again, like I said, about 3 times the average that you would see for a comparable school. So my students see me every day at the same time slot. After that, all faculty members have dedicated bookable office hours. So rather than do everything by drop-in, we have dedicated slots that will protect for students where we can do longer sessions for mentoring, for individualized student counseling, for test taking review, for questions and answers. We can do that by groups. We can do it individually. We'll be flexible so that if you have to leave campus, we'll meet you by Zoom. All of this is designed around making sure that you never have to wait. When you have a question, when you have a need, you can essentially get immediate feedback. Within 24 hours, you have feedback on that item. All of this is designed to make sure that you have access to the highest quality resources at any time. As President Ross said, we maintain a system of exams that we call our block exams, our quizzes. We also have what we call case-based learning, problem-based learning, and team-based learning. All of that's designed into our curriculum. So what that means is you never go very long without some kind of an evaluation to make sure that you're on the right track. And if we need to make any corrections, we can do that. Essentially, you're evaluated every 2 weeks at UMHS in every class. And that might sound a little bit stressful at the beginning, but the idea is the more times that you get evaluated, the less the evaluations are going to scare you. So that's part of building your resilience as a clinician, as a practicing doctor. So we evaluate you so that we can give you that feedback and say, hey, you're strong here, we're weak here, we're going to do a little bit more. It also means that, hey, everybody can have a bad day. So imagine the times in your undergrad. Hey, I had this 1 midterm, 1 final exam. 2 days make or break your entire semester. Heaven help you if you have a bad day, and everybody can have one. Instead of that, your grades are distributed throughout our course. So you have 3 block exams at a minimum. You have 3 quizzes at a minimum. Then you have your team-based learning, your case-based learning, and your problem-based learning opportunities. So we evaluate you between 7 and 10 times in any course. That lets you distribute your marks, that gives you real-time feedback, and that lets you highlight where you're going to need more time or where you can take a little bit less time. As President Ross said, we've also invested in this clicker system, which allows us to do, without grades attached to it at all, just to see in our class if the thing that we taught maybe 5 minutes ago landed or if it didn't land. So we push out a question and we see maybe we need to go back. So rather than leave you in the dark even for a day, we want to be able to get that feedback on you right away. So if I can emphasize anything, it's that the curriculum and the teaching at UMHS is designed to be as real-time responsive as it possibly can be. It's designed to emphasize the strengths of the training of our faculty members, and it's designed to make sure that you have an authentic mentoring experience to help you develop into a clinician, because we know at the end of the day you're going into a body of practice. This is not just academic information, you have to practice. So all of our courses are designed around clinical scenarios. When I teach immunology, I teach from a textbook called Case Studies in Immunology. I have 56 cases that I present to my students over the course of 8 weeks. So 56 cases that were taken from, for example, Boston Children's Hospital or Cornell or New York City Hospital. All of these cases are the notes from the attending physician and the history of somebody who went through. So we integrate our courses that way, where we also bring in question banks like UWorld, which are very high level questions to test your understanding at the level of what we would expect from the USMLE. So very, very strong integration into our clinical principles right from the first day. As President Ross said, the other thing that we emphasize is making sure that we get student feedback as quickly as we can. And so because of that, we have what's called the Student Government Association, the SGA. So, and another of my roles, so I'm not just a professor on the island, I'm also one of the deans for student affairs. And I'm the liaison between faculty and the Student Government Association. So every class has got a class representative that's voted on and elected by that group. Their job is to bring forward suggestions, concerns, or comments from their individual class to the faculty. So we host a regular meeting. Every month we get together and meet with the SGA. We hear from every class, every representative. Anything that we can take action on immediately, we take action. So this could be something small like the microwave isn't working in the cafeteria. So, okay, we go in there, we assign facilities, we get the microwave taken care of. But it can go as far as we need a particular learning resource for the school. So we elevate that to President Ross. He hears immediately that this is what the SGA is talking about, and we can start the discussion on how we can bring that in, or if that's not a feasible option for us, what's a good option that's going to accomplish the same goal. On top of that, through the dean's office, we maintain an entire network of student supports. So we maintain a peer tutoring system, so our TA system. I've just finished assigning our TAs for this semester. So we assign 1 to 2 TAs that you can sign up for. It offers you a tuition credit to go in and help your peers with courses that you've already passed. And this is hearing from people who've already gone through that part of the course. So you can say, hey, Air really likes to ask questions this style, or make sure that you know how to hit this topic because that comes up on the STEP exam where that ties into the courses that you're going to do next. We have our mental health services office that's available on island. So we have 3 counselors that are available at all times for students that we can either work with them as counselors or we can connect you to other on-island resources. All of our faculty are assigned 20 students as being their advisees. So on top of their accessibility through office hours, all of us are assigned 20 students that we check in with all the way through the semester. That could be everything from how are your classes going to are there things on the island that you need that you haven't been able to do? Do you need extra help somewhere? Hey, do you need to know where to rent a car? We'll do any advisement that we can offer, personal or professional. We have 17 or 18 active student clubs. They represent everything from disciplines that you might want to go into in medicine, faith-based organization, team-based sports, you name it, it's active somewhere through UMHS. So what I hope that we've emphasized between all of us at this point is that UMHS, because we like to create this boutique personalized environment, have set up an enormous amount of resources that you're not going to find even in much larger schools that are entirely focused on making sure that your experience as a student is personalized, responsive to what you need, and is going to set you up for success all the way through the clinical program.
Thanks, Craig. One other thing I'd like to add about our faculty. So, as I mentioned earlier, the students are really an important aspect of the university. And one of the things that they help us do is decide who to employ. So when a faculty member is considered, they go through initially a search group that reviews their credentials. They're made up of senior administrators. And if they have the appropriate credentials, they have an initial interview. If they like what they see and hear, then they're invited to St. Kitts to give a lecture in front of their peers as well as the student body. And then the student body will be presented with a survey, and they will rate that faculty member. And unless the faculty member gets a high rating, we don't hire them. So it's important that we're looking for faculty that are dynamic, love to teach, dedicated to students, good PowerPoint presentations, great communicators. And once again, you're a part of the process. We don't hire people without your support. So I think that's a really important aspect of who we are and what we're about. We're student oriented, and we only want the best for you.
And as a great example, when I interviewed, Zach was in the class that vetted me. So Zach inflicted me on all the future students at UMHS. So I had to teach him for 3.5 hours for my interview.
So the other thing that's really, I think, is really important, and what makes us unique is that what are some of the things that we do to ensure your success on USMLE? One of it is we talked about all our questions, all our examinations, or all USMLE style questions. But we also have integrated into our basic science curriculum and the clinical curriculum NBME shelf examinations. These are same examinations that all the U.S. medical schools offer, and you're able to get a very great evaluation and review of your examination so that you could use that to know what your strengths and weaknesses are in the future. And the NBME, National Board of Medical Examiners, is the same group that makes up the USMLE Step 1. So you're getting USMLE style questions all the way through the basic science program. But starting this semester, we are changing the way we help students with regards to a review program. And in the past, what we did is that your review program was predominantly up in Maine. It was a 15-week integrated review program. We'll talk a little bit about that. But we decided now that we're going to have a review program also in your last semester in the basic science program. And you'll be able to work with your faculty that are currently down there to start the review. And we're going to integrate into that review UWorld questions. So we're going to break it down into small groups, primarily working on the three main topics, which is Phys, Pharm, Path, and go through at least one round of UWorld questions in your fifth semester, in your last semester there. Then we're going to have another review program up in Maine when you progress from your last semester in St. Kitts to your main program. Another 15-week integrated review program, once again, utilizing our faculty in St. Kitts for small groups. We're going to also integrate into that the use of not only UWorld, but we're going to, as diagnostic examinations, we are going to give you self-assessment exams by National Board of Medical Examination, which simulates USMLE Step 1, just to see how you're progressing in the review program. And then at the end, you'll sit for the comprehensive basic science examination, which is really a mock Step 1 examination. And we feel very confident that at the end of that review program, you'll go in for UWorld twice. You'll get NBME self-assessments. You'll have the NBME comprehensive basic science program. We feel that there's no other university that is offering this type of review program and going to this extent to get you prepared for Step 1. So that really makes us unique, very hands-on, and we're dedicated to your success in the program. By the way, I noticed that no one is chatting. If you click on the chat, you can ask questions throughout this presentation. So if you have any questions, please click on the chat and ask whatever questions relating to anything that pops into your mind.
You want to do the Q&A so we make sure that it gets right to us. Use the Q&A box.
Oh, sorry.
I don't think I did a great job of explaining that at the beginning.
Yeah, say that again. Tell them again what it is.
You want to use the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen, and we'll answer it for you. We'll cherry pick a few for the panelists.
Oh, there's a Q&A. Okay. So that really kind of sets us apart. So utilization of shelf examinations, utilization of USMLE style questions, clicker system throughout the basic science program, personalized education, dedicated faculty, traditional curriculum, and how do we know, how good the program is? And part of that is getting your accreditation. So we're accredited by two different bodies. One is St. Kitts, which every 5 years, you go through a review program. They bring in a number of outside consultants who have an expertise in reviewing medical schools in the Caribbean, and you're required to provide a database document and a self-study. And we had that done a year ago. We received a full 5-year accreditation from them, and it went over. What I will tell you is that at the end, there was no sites and only recommendations to improve some of the website. That was it. So that's unheard of for a site visit. But the other body that accredits us is ACCM, which is a body out of Ireland. They've adopted the U.S. standards of accreditation. They've adopted the LCME standards. LCME is the body that accredits U.S. medical schools. And ACCM is recognized by the U.S. Department of Education through a body called NCFMEA, which is the National Council for Foreign Medical Education and Accreditation. And that approval is really critically important because ECFMG changed their regulations this year, which says that any Caribbean school or any Caribbean school that is seeking ECFMG, students are seeking ECFMG certification, has to be from a school that has an accreditation recognized by ECFMG. And if they're not recognized by ECFM, if that accreditation is not recognized by ECFMG, you can't sit for USMLE and you can't be licensed in the United States. So our accreditation is our accreditor is recognized by ECFMG. So that's really important. And I know this body of students currently with us are looking at a multitude of Caribbean medical schools. Just make sure that that's an important question to always ask. Is your accreditor recognized by ECFMG? So that is the situation. So accredited by, and the last time we got accredited, which was last year from ACCM, we received a full, I think 6-year accreditation. And once again, and I'll tell you something that was pretty funny. At the end of the review, they spend a couple days down in St. Kitts. They go through the database document. They go through the self-study. They meet with students. They meet with faculty, meet with an administrator, meet with the clinical department, meet with the finance department. Every aspect of the university that they review, and including a very lengthy student survey that they've created, and they work with our students to create a survey that covers every aspect of the institution, wanting to know what students thought about the academic program. And literally, we had 0 sites. Now, I'm going to tell you, this is a body that has adopted the liaison committee of LCME standards. These are very, very tough standards. These are the same standards that are applied to U.S. medical schools. And to have 0 sites is absolutely unheard of for any institution. And they felt that the quality of the program was outstanding, but the dedication of the faculty and administrators was what really impacted them. So we really were very happy with that. So what's really nice about that is that when you go out, when you're applying for residencies, you can be very proud of the institution that you went through, because you can with pride state that we're fully accredited by these bodies, and they are LCME standards. So that's a big plus. So living in St. Kitts it's a beautiful island. I started the veterinary school there back in '83. I've been going to St. Kitts since then. I love the people, very friendly, lots of things to do, great restaurants, good supermarkets, beautiful beaches. Hiking is wonderful, snorkeling is terrific. I mean, there's so much to do, and it's a small island, so it doesn't take very long to get from point A to point B, and it's just incredible. So maybe Kirthi and Zach, you could talk a little bit about your experiences in St. Kitts, maybe, and also about your experiences in the basic science program, and how you feel that prepared you for the clinical program. And did you feel any deficiency when you got into the clinical program, because you were also there with your U.S. counterparts? So maybe you guys could talk a little bit about that.
For sure.
So
Oh, you want to go first?
doesn't matter to me. So I lived at the Royal, which is down in Frigate Bay in St. Kitts. It was an awesome place to live, very accommodating. And they had a 24-hour gym, which was very important to me, and a walkable distance to the grocery store. The rest of it, the school provided transportation, would pick me up on a bus, and I would go to school and um, go to campus, and that's where I would stay most of the day. And that's just sort of how my brain was wired. Um, I was accepted into the med program, yeah, which was the 4 semester program. And then there's extended basic sciences, which is a 5 semester program. And then there's also a program called ARP, which is a accelerated review program. Um, I think Kirthi was in the ARP program and then went into the extended basic science program. So I'll let her talk about that. But I was extremely jealous of people in ARP because they got a sort of leg up on everybody that didn't have ARP, because they had seen a lot of the material before. You would learn sort of the first semester of each course, or, first semester of path, first semester of farm, and sort of the first few block, or the first block exam was all review. So it was sort of a little bit of jealousy because they already knew a lot of the material that I was, trying to really cram and study for. The school overall is incredible. Like we've said, the anatomy lab is top notch. I've never seen anything like that at any other medical school I've ever been to. It prepares you incredibly for a surgery specialty, for radiology, for interventional radiology, to have your hands in cadavers and be able to see this before you're even entering the OR really sets you apart from other medical schools, and especially sets you apart from other students, even in your clinical rotations and beyond that into residency. Furthermore, the curriculum, like we've said, all the professors and attendings that are teaching at UMHS, there's no research requirements. They get paid to be there to teach. They don't get paid to push the papers and to push the research, which is great. And that's what Dr. Ara sort of said, in the sense that all these teachers are here for you, and they're here to teach you to be the best doctor you can be. And at the end of the day, that's exactly what you want. Furthermore, in comparison to other residents, or I guess in comparison to other med students in like your 3rd and 4th year clinicals, I would say UMHS puts you above and beyond most medical students. I was alongside Michigan University, Michigan State University students, Johns Hopkins, Nova Southeastern, a lot of top tier medical schools. And I think UMHS does a great job teaching you. And then even more, that 5th semester in Maine really primes your clinical acumen. It really primes your studying for step 1. And it just makes you stand out as a student. And, that's exactly what you want, especially in those clinical rotations, because a lot of times those are great interview opportunities, 3-month-long interview opportunities, 4-week-long interview opportunities, if you want to apply back there for residency. So like I said, UMHS does a great job preparing you not only for medical school clinicals, but it really shapes you into a well-rounded resident. And we continue to climb the ladder. There's a lot of places that didn't know about UMHS, but over the past decade, we have really done some great work for the Caribbean medical school community, and have really changed some lives of people, which is awesome.
Well, my experience at on the island, my first semester, first off, I had no idea about I really did limited research on the island itself. I liked the school, I looked at the campus, and then a month before I started, I was like, okay, where should I live? I decided to stay at the Marriott, which the Marriott sounded safe. I was like, okay, cool. I stayed there for my first semester, loved it. It was in the Frigate Bay area. That's kind of a more modern type of area. Lots of restaurants, lots of coffee shops. That's close to, like, right across from where Zach stayed. And then in my second semester, I moved actually closer to campus so I could walk to school. I stayed on campus all day like Zach. The campus facility is beautiful and it has internet, AC, great views, excellent views. So that's pretty much where I stayed and studied most of the day. There's also a gym there that was open till 11 p.m. every day, so I could utilize that gym. And then I'd either walk home in a group or I'd take the bus. The one thing about UMHS is I love the fact that they had buses that were timed, but they'd actually drop you if you lived in camps, which is kind of the town area, they actually drop you right in front of your house, which is really, really nice. Um, Other than that, I would say UMHS did an excellent job in training us too. As Zach said, I did do ARP. I was out of school for 3 years. During that time, I did not study. I did not take tests, and I don't know what most people say, but to me, being able to study and being able to take tests is a skill. It's a skill that you develop, and if you're great at it, I love that. But it is something that if you put the time in, you can develop and you can learn strategies to improve. So what I loved about ARP is that since I hadn't been studying, I hadn't been taking tests for 3 years, it really gave me a good introduction to relearn how to study, relearn how to take tests, and make mistakes that I want to make in a safe space because this is kind of outside of the medical school. So that when I started med school, I was ready and I knew how I wanted to study. What ARP is, as Zach kind of said, we get a taste of every single subject that we see in the medical school program, from first to fifth semester. Every single subject, from anatomy to pharmacology, which we take in our last semester, we get about a week crash course in like 1 to 2 weeks worth of material that we would take in the med school, just to give us a taste of one, the material that we should know, two, how to study for that course to succeed, and three, get a taste of how the professor likes to teach. Every professor kind of had their own teaching style, and this is a way for us to be able to meet them. The one thing about UMHS is, sometimes when I was in medical, well, not medical school, when I was in my undergrad, speaking to professors, that was always very daunting and very nerve-wracking. But at UMHS, they want you to come ask questions. They really try to create a safe environment, and so ARP kind of helped me break out of that shell and see that it's okay. I can ask a question. No one's going to bite me. So that was really nice too. And just being able to build those mentorship relationships. Other than that, was anything else that we were supposed to talk about? I got distracted.
No, I think that's pretty good. I mean, the only
Okay.
other thing is that maybe show some pictures of the island, what it's like to actually live, because I really think it's a beautiful island.
The campus is gorgeous. That's the one thing. I live right beside campus, so that view that you'll see if you see some pictures, that was my view from my bedroom, and it was fantastic. There's something about waking up in the sun every day and studying. It's just so lovely.
I mean, that's a beautiful picture. One of the things that we try to do is when we have when students first arrive, we have a welcome party for the students where I get to meet everybody down who's just entered, and we spend a day at the beach. So you can see the students really enjoy and love St. Kitts on the top right corner. You can see the students enjoying Reggae Beach, where we serve food, there's music, there's volleyball. and they get to meet upperclassmen and faculty, and it's a great way to kickstart the program. We also take students out on the catamarans when they first enter, so that's an example of what, students are just super enjoyable. And we go snorkeling, we have food, we have refreshments, and we get to sail back to watch the sunset. So it's just a beautiful day of bonding, and it's where you begin to develop your relationships that last for a lifetime. So we're very we really enjoy doing that, and that's where I really get to know everybody. And one of the things that if people know about me is I believe in open door policy. So anytime you have any issues, questions, recommendations, problems, you can always email me, you can contact me, and I always respond back to the students in a very timely fashion. So I'm really dedicated to you guys and your success. The other thing, so you finished the basic science program, then you transition to Maine. It's where we have Introduction to Clinical Medicine 2 in the review program. We've talked about the review program, and we've talked about, tell you a little bit about ICM2. It's where you really start to fine tune your clinical skills, get a lot of hands-on experience, and then you transition from that into the hospitals after you pass USMLE step one. I'm just curious, Zach and Kirthi, and I think Kirthi, you were involved in a little teaching, I think maybe in ICM2. Can you guys tell us a little bit about your experience at ICM2 and how that helped you transition to the clinical program? And how did you compete against US students once you've completed that program?
Go ahead, Zach, you start.
Okay. The main semester, like I said just a little bit ago, is what differentiated, I think, for one, UMHS from other Caribbean schools, but also UMHS from American medical schools. That is something when I talk to my fellow residents, my fellow med students when I was going through medical school, that they were pretty astonished at that and at that semester that we're given. For one, President Ross listens to everything that the students sort of have to say. He always takes whatever feedback he can from the students. And I know myself and Kirthi, we were pretty adamant about switching from a certain question bank to a newer and better one that sort of was the new gold standard. And President Ross was right behind us, and we got UWorld and things of that nature. So he's always been sort of right behind us with getting us the tools and materials that we need to succeed. I think up to date as well was something myself and Kirthi really pushed for, and we were able to get for the entire student body. Furthermore, Maine gives you really everything you need to succeed. They have learning specialists to help you figure out how to really study and narrow down your studying tactics for USMLE step one. And really they give you all the tools you need to have to be successful and to really stand out as a residency applicant. And I really can't speak enough to how well they prepare you for step one, how well they prepare you for your clinical rotations third and fourth year. I was in no way, shape, or form not prepared for that. I would say, I was above the 90th percentile when it came to just clinical acumen, answering clinical questions that the attending would ask and wait for, the med students to answer. And, I was able and fortunate enough to answer those most of the time. And I just think it's one of the big differences that UMHS has that really prepares you for your third and fourth year and even residency.
So obviously, step one, step two, those standardized exams are really important for obtaining a residency. But as a medical student, our goal at the end of the day is to obtain a residency so that we can eventually, be able to practice. I think that the main semester really helps us in achieving our residency because the most important, aside from exams, is our third and fourth year clinical rotations. We really want to shine. We really want to do our best. And that's where we can really showcase who we are and what we're capable of. And this is where we get our letters of recommendation that we need for residency. This is where we make connections. This is where, hopefully if we shine, we can ask them, to help us guide us, get more mentorship to guide us towards the residency program. What I really liked about the ICM2 is that there's different components of it. It's not just preparing us uh, for step one. It's also teaching us how to be strong in our clinical rotation. So one thing that I really liked was the standardized patient encounters that they had. This is a time where they're standardized patients and they basically act out an ailment. And when I tell you they act, you really think they have this. Like they'll cry if they have to, they yell if they have to. It's wild. There are these actors that will act out an ailment. You have to do an HPI. You basically treat them as a patient. You get their entire history, past medical history. You do a physical exam on them, and you're basically trying to figure out what's going on with them. So while you're doing this, there's another person there who's kind of writing down everything that you are asking the patient, and then their goal is to present your um, examination to the grader. And this skill is incredibly important, and one thing that I think really differentiated us from other medical students, because we were able to really develop this skill. When you see a patient in clinical rotations, you want to be able to ask them the appropriate questions and be able to examine them confidently, and you want to be able to discuss your findings with the attending or the resident so that they know you were able to examine them, get the information, and do everything appropriately. And you want to do it in a timely manner. In this standardized patient encounters, everything was timed. So you're really like hustling and you're doing it in a kind of stressful situation because you have someone watching you and grading you, which is all good because when you're doing it in the real world, you want to have the confidence. And I think one of the skills that I developed personally from ICM2 was this skill. And I think that's something I showcased during my clinical rotations that made all the difference. I now, being a resident, I get to work with medical students, which is awesome. And I work with different medical students from all around. And right now I'm at Huron Valley and at one of the DMCs in Michigan. And I'm working with all UMHS students, which is great. And one of the things I do for them is I get a consult. I'll be like, hey, I have a consult. I want you to go see the patient. I'll give you 20 minutes and I'll meet you in the room and I make them present to me. And I can already see the difference in their ability to do that, get the information, present to me versus some other medical students from other schools. So I think that's all. I think that makes a world of a difference. And I think that's thanks to UMHS. It really attests to what the skills that they prepare us to. It's not just book smart, it's also they're preparing us to succeed in clinical rotations.
So once you complete the fifth semester in Maine, you then transition to the clinical program. We're affiliated with the currently 26 teaching hospitals in the United States, Canada, and Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, we're affiliated with Ponce School of Medicine, where we have approximately 6 hospitals, and we're constantly expanding our clinical programs into various states and other teaching hospitals. So that's occurring on an ongoing basis. The goal is always to try to place you or schedule you for an entire year at a time so you know exactly where you're going to go. And in your cores, which is your first year into the clinical program, you have to take a variety of different core rotations: surgery, internal medicine, OBGYN, pediatrics, family medicine. And you have to do those at our affiliated hospitals, where the preceptors are our preceptors. And that after that you have a final year of electives. And what we always recommend to students in terms of their electives, you can go to any teaching hospital in the United States as long as you get approval from the clinical department. And we always recommend that students try to go to hospitals that they're interested in doing residencies at. And why do we recommend that? You can go to the hospitals that we're affiliated, but if you go to hospitals where you're interested in a residency, you get to meet with residency directors, DMEs, and you can show them how hard you work, your dedication, motivation, and what's important is that when you submit an application to that hospital, they know who you are. They get thousands of applications from unknown students, and you have a leg up over all those because you actually have done a rotation at that hospital. So we urge you to do that, and I think that's part of our success. Why we currently have a 93% placement record for our graduates, which is extremely high, and it's a testimony to the quality of the education, but the quality of our students. So we're really proud of that. Um, and so, 26 teaching hospitals. We're located in New York, Maryland, Michigan, Wisconsin, and I think we showed Florida, Georgia, California, Ontario, Puerto Rico. And one of the things I'll say, I don't know how many people are from Puerto Rico, but here's one thing that's kind of unique about Puerto Rico. We have such a great reputation in Puerto Rico that students are being offered residencies outside the residency matching program. They're being offered those positions direct. And that says a lot about the quality of the students and how much the reputation of the university, how great that is in Puerto Rico. So we're really proud of that also. So that's a little overview of the basic science program, the clinical science program, our accreditation. The one thing I think Sean's going to talk a little bit about was admission standards. But one of the things I was looking at today, and this is really important for me, I've run alumni organizations for years, and I understand what the cost of education is and the importance of that because of debt. And students have to pay, these loans back. And I just looked at, how we compare to other institutions. And I just realized that some of these larger institutions are charging probably 200,000 or more than UMHS. And when you have to pay that back, the loans that you take have interest rates. And so these numbers could be very significant in terms of your debt. So if debt is of concern to you and you have to pay it back and you know what you're going to get paid in a residency, you may want to take that into consideration because some of the debts at some of these schools are just huge.
You know, it goes back to what you were talking about earlier and how UMHS is kind of the last, family-owned institution out there. And other schools are basically large corporate operations. And their main focus is, of course, if you're a corporation, your job is to make money for shareholders. And so we're a whole lot different. So I think that's really important.
Yeah, and so everybody knows, I really do care about you, and I care about your debt, and I care that you have to pay this back out of a residency's, what you make as a resident, and it's painful if your repayment is comparable to a mortgage. So, running alumni organizations for many years, I recognize that concern. So I just wanted to put that out there. So Sean, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about missions.
Of course, and thank you. And at this point, you've heard a lot of great information from obviously the faculty, from our alumni, and at this point, we're starting to see the admissions questions in the Q&A. So it's a good time to pop in and talk about the admissions process. So we want to, we make this as easy as possible. We don't have a deadline. There was a question or two about that in the Q&A. We operate on a rolling basis, and really what that means is that the sooner you apply, the sooner you can go through the process, the sooner you can be evaluated, the sooner you can interview, the sooner we can get your file to the admissions committee, the sooner that they can make a decision, and the sooner you'll find out what that decision is. So it can happen in a matter of just a couple of weeks, believe it or not. And that's hard to understand, and it's hard to wrap your head around if you've only gone through the US or Canadian process. That takes as much as, what, 9 or 10 months. You think about it right now, students are getting ready to go through the process in the US to not to start in fall 2025, but to start in fall 2026. And it's just that long of a process when the portal opens at this time of the year, and you go through and you complete all the information and you upload your documents, and then you find out about your secondaries and you get those done a little bit later on, and then in the fall and in the winter and in the early part of the spring, you go through the interview season and you get your interviews done, and then you wait and wait and wait, and then sometime later in the spring, decisions are made if you didn't apply early decision, and many students are going to be put on a wait list, and this time next year you may still be waiting to find out if you're going to be in for the fall of 2026. So it could be a 9 to 12 month process, in the US and Canada. And that's not what happens at UMHS. And again, this is a rolling process. We're constantly working on, really the next year. And right now, the next term is September. And as I said at the outset of the presentation, if your plan was to start medical school this September, and a year ago you started going through the process with US med schools and it didn't work out the way that you wanted, you could still start medical school this fall, because we're still accepting applications for this fall. And again, over the next week, 2 weeks or so, however long it takes for you to get us the documentation that you need, you could go through the process and have a decision really within a matter of weeks. So the online application is right there on our website at umhs.org. You can fill out our application. And one thing that is a nice opportunity for students is if you have a PDF copy of an application that you filled out with any of the major application services, you can submit a PDF copy of that application to us. We're asking for the same information, so it will serve as your UMHS application. And when I say the major services, what I mean AMCAS, ACOMAS for the osteopathic schools, OMSAS for our friends up in Ontario, and also the Texas Medical Dental Application Service, TMDSAS. So any of those, if you have a PDF copy of the submission that you made, that can really get us started. It has all the information that we need to get moving with you. You will still need to submit, official transcripts, but that can be done later in the process. You will still need to submit MCAT scores, but that can be done later in the process. Everything we need obviously sits there in that application service PDF. In order to be considered, you need to have completed a minimum of 90 undergraduate credits, and really that's the equivalent of 3 undergraduate years. And most schools like us do that, so you can apply during your senior year. And clearly most students are going through and finishing out their degree and applying to medical school, coming to medical school with a bachelor's degree or even a master's in some cases. There's a specific slate of pre-med prerequisite courses that you have to take. And if you are in the quote unquote pre-med track at your institution, you're taking the courses that we need. And that would be a year of undergraduate biology with lab, bio 1 and 2. A year of undergraduate chemistry with lab, Chem 1 and 2, a year of organic chemistry with lab, a semester of physics, a semester of math, which is going to be calculus or stats you need in English. So these are the basic courses. And depending on how your school operates its organic chemistry program, some schools only have 1 semester. They only offer 1 semester of organic chemistry, and then students move on to biochemistry, and we will accept that as well to complete the organic chemistry course requirement. And that's pretty much the standard when you look at medical schools, across North America. Those are the typical courses that you need to have a basic grounding in order to be successful in medical school, but also to prepare for the MCAT, because that is a requirement as well. Now, there's an asterisk there that you see on the screen. It's a requirement for students who are citizens or residents of the United States, or who have done their undergraduate coursework, their undergraduate program, their prerequisite courses in the United States. So if you're in those categories, you do need to submit an MCAT to us, and obviously that's the majority of students who are probably on the call this evening. For Canadian students, people who grew up elsewhere, have spent their whole life elsewhere in the world, if you're looking at applying, the MCAT is not specifically required, but it's always recommended. So we're going to need a CV or resume from you as well. We want to see the types of things that you've done to get some experience and learn about this career. People don't just go to medical school. you don't just decide one day, "No, I'll become a doctor." Obviously, there are a lot of things that you do along the way. There are wonderful ways to get experience or get a view into what your life is going to be like as a physician. And we want to learn about some of those things, what you've done to prepare to go to medical school. So that resume is important. Along with that, we require either a committee letter, and many schools obviously have a pre-med committee that's preparing a letter, which is inclusive of many people's opinions of you. And if you don't have one of those, if your undergrad program doesn't do them, or if the process is just different, or if you're a career changer and you're not working with a pre-med department at undergraduate university, very common, and we require 2 letters of recommendation, on your behalf. The essays part of it as well, follow the directions. We're not looking for an 8-page manifesto, 10-point single spaced. We know it's a much more difficult exercise to distill all of your passion into a much shorter essay, so follow the directions there. Once the application comes in, our staff will work with you to ensure that we have everything that we need. We'll do an initial review, and that initial review is really just to determine if we're going to offer you an interview. And unlike many of our peers, medical schools in the US and Canada, we are not trying to weed people out before the interview. We are trying to interview as many people as possible, because I will tell you, from what is it now, 18 years of experience that I have doing this, working with pre-med students, the best way to get to know somebody and find out if they're going to be a fit for your medical school is to sit down with them, either virtually or in person. Most of the interviews are happening, virtually over Zoom these days, just like, other medical schools where you're applying. But the best way to get to know somebody is to talk to them and learn about their background and see if they'd be a fit. And so we have admission staff that are located around North America who complete those interviews and put together a summary of who you are as a candidate for the members of the admissions committee. Now, the admissions committee, it's important to note, is made up entirely of faculty, and there's one student representative as well who gets a vote. And so that's really important, because all of the different academic disciplines, all of the major areas are included. So you have people with different backgrounds on the faculty, and you have people looking at you from different points of view. And their goal is to find out who's going to join the program. And so the admissions committee takes this seriously. They meet on a weekly basis, they vote on a weekly basis, they make decisions on a weekly basis, and we transmit those decisions on a weekly basis. So again, that timeline that I gave you earlier, that could be 9 to 12 months for the entire process from start to finish. In the US or Canada, can be as many as, could be as short as 9 to 12 days. At UMHS, because the admissions committee is meeting and voting every single week. And again, we are processing applications on a rolling basis. The admissions committee has a few different decisions at its disposal. Obviously, yes or no, you're in or you're not. Yeah, everybody expects those. And I'll start at the bottom of this list. For students who are not being offered an opportunity at this time, we really like to think of it more of as instead of a no, a not yet. I know that's kind of a cliche, but what's important is that we get notes back and from the members of the faculty who are on the admissions committee about why they felt this isn't the right time, why the student may not be ready, and actionable items that things that they can do to prepare better, to improve their academic foundation, and they can come back and apply again at a later date, hopefully for a different decision. And usually it could be any number of things depending on the student's background. But we can give a student pretty specific feedback from the faculty on how they can improve their candidacy. And you have to have some degree of maturity to hear that, obviously, as well. For some students who are not offered direct admission, they have the opportunity to start in what we call the accelerated review program. And what that is, it's a 1-semester program that gives students that opportunity to strengthen that academic foundation and give students, the ability to better prepare themselves for success in first semester and beyond of the medical program. And if you think about what happens when students are denied, and some of you in the audience may have had this experience yourself, if you've been denied from a US medical school or a Canadian medical school or somewhere else, and you're actually able to get feedback, often the feedback is, you should go do a master's degree. You should go do a post-baccalaureate program and better prepare yourself for medical school. The issue with that can be that costs a lot of money. Master's degrees can take 2 years. Post-baccalaureate programs are often 1 year. And what we're saying is the accelerated review program in a span of one 15-week semester, we feel we can accomplish the same types of things that master's or post-bac programs aim to do. And again, that's strengthen your overall academic foundation. The program takes place in St. Kitts. There is an online option there. It's the only online option that we have. It's the only online program that we have. And students get their feet wet in all the different parts, all the different areas of the basic sciences. But the focus really for those 15 weeks is on better preparing you as a student for success. And that means study skills, test taking techniques, that kind of thing. So for 15 weeks, for students that aren't quite ready to succeed in semester one of the medical program, the ARP can be a great way to strengthen that foundation and get you ready to succeed. And once you complete the ARP, you don't need to reapply to UMHS. If you pass the program, you are automatically accepted into UMHS semester one the next semester, and you move seamlessly into the program. So that's a quick bit on ARP. And then for students who are accepted, the admissions committee will make a determination if they are placing you in either of the two tracks that we have. And I know we talked about this briefly earlier, but just to refresh your memory, there's a standard 4-semester basic science program, and then there is also the extended basic science program, which takes the same coursework and spreads it out over 5 semesters. Now, whether you complete the basic sciences in either 4 or 5 semesters, it's the same tuition cost, just spread out over a longer period of time. And you know, many students tend to feel that that's a better fit for them. So, you know, speaking of cost, you know, obviously we want to discuss that as well. President Ross teed this up just a few minutes ago, and you can see where we sit, kind of in the rankings here of typical costs. These are what would be 4-year costs. This would be your entire tuition and fee charge for the entire 4-year MD program. Of course, public schools in the United States, they're going to be your least expensive option. The issue there is, of course, everybody wants to go there. And so they're, you know, those schools have 10 times as many applicants as they do seats in their program. And so access to lower cost MD programs is highly challenging. You'll see that we are a little bit higher. We're at 184,000 for the 10-semester program, so which is a little bit higher than the average cost of the in-state program in the U.S. When you look at your out-of-state options at public schools in the U.S., the average cost gets higher, gets into the $260,000 range. Then when you look at private schools in the U.S. for MD programs are a little bit higher than that, closer to 270,000, which is also where private out-of-state options are going to sit for you. And then all the way to the right on the chart, you see what we have listed as larger Caribbean schools. We mean larger in terms of incoming class, certainly, but also larger in terms of their tuition bill. 310,000, if you've looked around, is actually on the lower end for some of the private schools. There's a school I'm aware of that's charging $377,000 in tuition and fees for its entire academic program. And that's before you get into living costs. And the full cost of attendance at a school that costs nearly $400,000 in tuition can be nearly $600,000 in your full cost of attendance. And obviously, again, we are on the we're far away on the spectrum, you know, from schools like that. So, and that's important to understand. And again, President Ross teed that up a little bit earlier. You know, it doesn't mean it's cheap. It just means it's a little bit less expensive, but obviously you're certainly getting a great value here. You're still going to need help in most cases, and unless you have that rich uncle who is who's committed to paying for your education. So when you're looking at financial aid options, first of all, scholarships are certainly available. And your UMHS application is also your UMHS scholarship application. There are a number of scholarships, and I won't run through them all. You can take a look on our website and for all the details. There's a few of them here on the screen, but all of the details on each of these scholarships can be found very easily by taking a look at the website. And again, you are considered for these on the basis of your academic background, your GPA, your MCAT, and you are considered for these automatically with your UMHS application after you are accepted, as at the time you were accepted to the university. There are also loan options available as well at UMHS, and we work with Sallie Mae, which is the largest private lender, one of the largest private lenders in the U.S. So loans are available for U.S. citizens and permanent residents. There are loan options available for students, whether they're in the ARP, the EBS, or the MED programs. And for our friends north of the border in Canada, there are lines of credit available from major Canadian banks. And there are also institutional loans available for those who qualify. A lot more information certainly can be found on our website talking about financial aid options, scholarships, and the loan programs. So, for all of what you've heard, and now you've seen, well, what the cost will be to access all the wonderful things that you've heard about tonight. Hopefully you're coming away from the presentation this evening with an understanding that an education at UMHS represents tremendous value. And, from the things that you've heard about, from what you've learned about the program this evening, I mean, what stands out to me certainly are the tremendous outcomes, represented in the flesh by Kirthy and Zach on with us this evening. Our 92% residency placement rate. You can go to our website. You can take a look at our residency placements going back years and years and years, and taking a look at the wonderful specialties that our graduates are getting into, the big name hospital systems and university programs that our graduates are getting into, and why is that? And it's because of the high academic standards that you've heard about that President Ross lives by. Personalized educational approach that you heard detailed by Dr. Ayer, leading to a 96% student retention rate, which is just unheard of. UMHS is really the only school I'm aware of that even puts a retention rate out there in writing. Most schools rely on their match rate to serve essentially out there as proof that their students are doing well. But what that obscures is the fact that the match rate is based on the people who actually complete the program. And, so it's important to understand what a retention rate is of any school that you're looking into. So you should ask that question. You heard from Dr. Michaud, who's a learning specialist. You heard about the academic support. You got to see a lot of information about the state-of-the-art campus that we have, which all prepares you to come back into North America and move into hospital systems. We're affiliated with a number of outstanding hospitals that help prepare you to complete your program, get ready to complete the required licensing exams, high pass rates on step 1 and step 2, and then step 3 happens while you're in residency. For our Canadian friends, 100% pass rate on the MCC QE Part 1. And again, all leading to those outstanding residency placements, outstanding results, and people like Kirthy and Zach who are leading the charge and carrying the flag for UMHS, into their careers. And speaking of leaving the university and moving into their careers, this is a great time of year because in just another week and a half, we will be celebrating another week and a half, 2 weeks and a half. Very soon, at the beginning of June, we'll be celebrating, graduation. And each year it happens in New York City at Avery Fisher Hall at Lincoln Center. And each year, it's a wonderful way to bring your family into the city and celebrate this momentous achievement in your life. Obviously, you've been working toward this for a number of years at the undergraduate, sometimes also at the graduate level before you get into medical school. We understand the long process and the amount of time and preparation that go into this. And this is just a wonderful way to celebrate this great achievement in your life and moving on to the next stage of your career as you transition into residency. So each year, graduation in New York City, wonderful way to celebrate this achievement. So with that, we're just past 9 o'clock in the Eastern time zone. So we'll begin to wrap up here. We're not quite done yet. We want to hear from each of our panelists, one last time. So I guess we can. We'll start with Dr. Michaud. Thanks so much for being on, Dr. Michaud, and appreciate your thoughts and insight into being a learning specialist and how academic support works, and a little bit about the main program. So thanks for your time. Any last comments? Any last bits of wisdom to share with our audience?
I would share that I have the opportunity to work with transfer students at when they come into the main program before they start the clinical work, and I meet with it reflects the nature of our school. I meet with everybody individually after they've been accepted and have an hour conversation with them. Sometimes those hour conversations turned into an hour and a half because I'm enjoying so much what this student is sharing with me, but the student is sharing the difference of what their school experience was before. And they really enjoy um, having a learning specialist that's dedicated to them, but they enjoy what the work of a typical week looks like. In Maine, there's a dessert, it's called a whoopie pie, and it's actually a reverse cake. It is cake on the outside and icing in the middle. And it's a fun thing for tourists to buy. I grew up in Maine, so my mother made a great whoopie pie. Our weeks are, we do on Monday and Friday, we do step study. We do lectures from great professors that review material from Kaplan, and they work around the country reviewing this material. We do question-based reviews on Monday and Friday, and we really immerse um, our work in understanding the gaps, and we have themes of the week or topics that we cover. Our middle 3 days are work in applying the exact same theme of the week. That would be cardiology, or if it would be endocrine. We look at what are the clinical things that we want to know? How do we do differential diagnosis? How do we know the difference between pneumonia and COVID? And really begin looking at what are standards of patient care, how the physical exam works, practice the physical exams, and then go in and do an intake on a standardized patient. It's an actor, but you would never guess it. And I would say the students have a lot of fun every day of the week that they're working. They work hard. They study. I think med students always study in class and they study outside of class. But we're an experiential campus in Maine, and we get to have hands-on experience about what we're learning for the next stage of our work every day. Every day is experiential. And on top of that, we have preceptorships where 4 days of the semester we send students out to clinics and hospitals. One hospital that I was just in has some Maine students that go to it, and they walk in and they get some exposure to file folders, and they pretend like they're the doctor the entire day, and they report to the attending that's there for them. So our main semester, I just want to share, is very experiential, is active every day as far as learning, and there's some sitting in lectures and listening, but there's an active component to every single day, and that's why students enjoy the time that they spend in that fifth semester in furthering their learning. Uh, I'm available for questions if I can answer anything for anyone that's here tonight. And of course, Sean and any of the admission folks would be able to get in touch with me for that. Thank you for spending some time.
Thanks so much, Dr. Michaud. Great to see you. And with that, I'll turn it to Dr. Ayer. Dr. Ayer, any last words of wisdom for our audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So as you're thinking about where you want to go to your medical program, we know that you're evaluating all your options because that is the logical thing to do. So we know UMHS is one of the things that you are considering. What I hope that we have communicated to you tonight is how much the emphasis at UMHS is on student success. Myself as a faculty member, Dr. Michaud as our director of the main program, Kurthy, Zach, President Ross, Sean, all of us have brought in the aspects that we've experienced, that we participate in, or that have driven our own success as parts of this institution. So UMHS is driven around the success and the accomplishment of our students. And that's why we're so very proud of being able to put out those numbers and say our attrition is the lowest in the Caribbean. Our match rate is among the highest, is comparable and competitive with mainland schools. We love putting out those things because it says our students are getting quality, our students are succeeding, our students are achieving. Because at the end of the day, we spend years with you. And so I maintain friendships with students who've gone through our program. I have people who text me pictures of their cats and send me Merry Christmas. We maintain these relationships because we're a part of this journey with you, and we're very, very proud of seeing what you accomplish. We've invested ourselves, our time, our energy, our money into making sure that you get the best experience possible. So that's what I hope we've communicated to you. So as you look at all of your options, as you think about your next steps, and as you consider where you should invest your time and your money, I want you to do this test with everybody. Do the people that you're talking to convey to you that they're invested as much as you are in your success? Do the people that you're talking to have the willingness to put themselves on the line and say, this is what we accomplish, this is what we believe in, and this is where we think we can go with you? Because if they can't, they're not your people. So I want you to look at everybody that you talk to and find out, run that test on them. Do I feel like they're investing as much in my success as I am going to? And if the answer is no, that's not your place. What I hope that you've seen from us is that we do everything in our power to invest in your success. And I have the firm belief that students who come through UMHS come out head and shoulders, not just against Caribbean peers, but against any medical school that you want to put yourself in comparison with. That's our belief in this program, and that's the philosophy that President Ross instilled into the school as we were building it. So I wish you the absolute very best with your applications. If you want to reach out to myself, I'm happy to answer any other questions that you might have or provide any other advice that you might have. All of our emails and contacts are available on our website. So I wish you the absolute very best. Thank you for spending your evening with us, and I look forward to reviewing your application soon.
Thanks, Craig. Great to see you. Appreciate your thoughts as always. Well, Zach, it was not too long ago that you were in the shoes that, or the seats that our audience finds themselves in today. So it's been it's probably gone pretty quickly, I would assume, as you look back on it. So what wisdom can you impart to our audience?
Like everyone said, there's a lot of places that are gonna, give you the medical school is taught the same at many different universities in the sense of overall curriculum. I think UMHS puts a very nice personalization and spin on it that allows many students to succeed, and that's sort of what we can see with their track record. Like Sean was saying, it goes extremely fast. I can remember, talking to my parents saying that I wanted to go to this Caribbean medical school, and they were thinking I was absolutely crazy, and they didn't, back me and really didn't want me to go. I had to do a lot of research and sort of really prove to them that this was real and that, I wasn't just going to waste some money and go to some Caribbean island and come back and be out of money and out of a potential to go to medical school. UMHS does a great job in sort of teaching you as a person and not as a number. And granted, that's shown with our acceptance, our 60 in January, our 60-ish in April, and then once again, maybe 100, 120 in September. We don't bring in a large volume of students because we can show that our acceptance rate and our residency placement and our passes on step one show that's exactly why we do that. Thank you for being on this talk. I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys, when you're looking at schools, just make sure, I've seen some horror stories. Make sure you check certifications. Make sure you check if they're able to come back, if you're able to come back in the States with your degree, there's all sorts of things that you kind of really need to do your homework on. And that's one great thing about sort of watching this is we sort of do it for you. This is a great school. It's a great opportunity, and I hope to that we were able to answer some questions and really show you what UMHS is about.
Great, Zach. Thanks so much again for your time. Have a great night. Well, Kirthy, it's been a long day for you, obviously, as you came right off of your shift and put your headphones on and started typing away. Thanks for your help in the Q&A as well. So, any last thoughts?
Feel like everyone's kind of already said something, but just one thing I wanted to emphasize is when you join UMHS, you're not just going to a medical school, you're not just a number, you are part of our community, and that extends from on the island to off the island. The alumni, we're all here to support you. There's a huge network. Even the what's it called, professors, I still text some of them once in a while. I'm just texting Dr. Ayer. Um, your community, we're all there for you. We're all there to answer questions. I get texts all the time from students on the island who I've never met, got my contact information one way or another to ask questions. And I might not have the answers for them, but I'll connect them to someone who does. So that's the one nice thing. We're all here for each other and we want everyone to succeed because that is the culture at UMHS where we want everyone to be the best version of themselves because we want what's best for our future patients. So, but thank you all for staying to the end of this presentation. I know it was kind of long, but I hope we answered all your questions. And once again, I know if there are any questions, I'm sure I had questions after these webinars too. Feel free to message or can ask Sean to give you our contact information. We're always here to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks so much, Kirthy. And I don't know if we mentioned this at the beginning. I may not have mentioned this, but we are recording, and this will be available on our YouTube channel within about a day or so. So you can come back and review the information that was discussed. Well, of course, it is the President's webinar, so we give President Warren Ross the final word this evening. President Ross, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So first off, what I want to do is I know we didn't get to answer every question, but what I want to do is give you out my personal email. And if you have any further questions, you can email me directly. My email address is wross, ROSS, at umhs-sk.net. So, I'll be more than happy to answer any remaining questions that you have. So what I like most about UMHS is that I feel like we're a family, that we're small enough that we could, spend time with you. I went to a large university where I was basically a social security number, and some of my classes were, had 300, 400, 500 students, but you're in a class of 50 students in a classroom. You get to know your faculty member, you know all the people that are surrounding you. You work as a community, you work in a very collegial manner. Even, some of my graduate schools, it was very cutthroat. This is not a cutthroat environment. This is where everybody's working towards a common cause and trying to help and support each other. That's the beauty of a small school environment where you have really great faculty, you have the resources, you have the learning specialists, you have facilities that are comparable to what you have in the United States. You have the USMLE support system starting in the basic sciences, having clinical material all the way through the basic sciences, really beautiful, a great library, learning resource center, anatomy lab, skills lab, all the resources that you need, culminating in a 5th semester in Maine that ultimately prepares you to sit for USMLE Step 1, 26 affiliated teaching hospitals that is growing every day, accreditations that are recognized by the U.S. Department of Education. And it's just a really great program. And if this is what you're looking for, not everybody's looking for a small school environment. Some people thrive in a large institution, but if you like that hands-on approach, that personalized education, where you know that we really care about you, then this is the school for you. So we hope that you consider UMHS. We really appreciate your time today. And we hope that we covered everything that you needed to cover. And for those who have additional questions, please reach out to me, email me. I'll be in contact with you. Thank you.
All right. Oh, sorry. I thought I couldn't get back on the screen. Well, thanks to everyone in the audience for being here this evening, and just echoing my colleagues. Thanks so much. We appreciate your time. We appreciate your interest in the university. Certainly thanks to my colleagues for their thoughts and what I know has been an informative discussion for you in the audience. So I encourage you to follow us on social media via Facebook if you still use it. It's the old joke that, people like me getting old, we're the only ones who still use it, but also Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, again, where we will have this webinar posted shortly if you'd like to rewatch it and review any of the information. So you can contact us at any time at admissions@umhs-sk.net. Visit us on the web at umhs.org. And on behalf of my colleague, Sham Daria, our Director of Enrollment Management, once again, my name is Sean Powers. I'm Vice President for Admissions. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Have a great night. Take care.